All my bills are paid, which means that I can criticize Mike Gundy on this episode of Frogs Insider right now. Hey, Frog fans, welcome into another episode of Frogs Insider presented by the Flying T Club. Jamie Plunkett here alongside Melissa Treewasser. Hands over her face for that intro. Melissa, out of 10, scale of 10, what are your thoughts on the intro?
Jamie, when you say I got an intro, don't worry about it, and then hit record, it's going to be a 10 out of 10 every time. So I was not prepared, and that's on me, not on you.
Well, we are here to talk a little bit about Mike Gundy as far as his football team goes, because they played TCU on Saturday, and TCU, this is a family-friendly show, but TCU beat them badly.
They did.
Melissa beat them badly. And we're going to get into TCU's 38-13 win over the Oklahoma State Cowboys. We're going to talk a little men's basketball. We're going to talk a little women's basketball. We're going to talk a little women's soccer as well, because they played in a conference championship over the weekend. And we're going to just dive all the way in. But before we do, obviously, got to shout out the sponsor, Flying T Club, TCU's NIL Collective, TCU's only NIL Collective, sponsoring over 110 student athletes at TCU and partnering with a variety of organizations in and around the city of Fort Worth, making Fort Worth a better place for everyone. Folks, if you go to flyingtclub.com, you can see all of the different ways that you can get involved, whether that's an individual donation, making a corporate gift and becoming a corporate partner with the Flying T Club. You can see all of the volunteer opportunities that they have. You can see more about the stories of the student athletes, more of the stories about the coaches, and you can find a lot of different ways to plug in. Plus, now, if you make a donation to the Flying T Club, it counts for your priority points, just as if you were giving to the athletics department or giving to the Frog Club or giving to something in that regard, which means that if you give to the Flying T Club, you can now get points that allow you to upgrade seats in stadiums, maybe add an extra ticket to your season tickets next year, those kinds of things. Really cool opportunity over at flyingtclub.com. Go to flyingtclub.com to see how you can get involved. Also, a big shout out. Oh, yes.
I was going to one more note on Flying T Club. If you like the priority points and you like the, hey, but what's in it for me personally, if you guys saw Josh Hoover's hat, his very cool red Flying T cap, Denton retweeted that I posted yesterday. That is an available gift at a certain donor level. So if you like swag, exclusive things that only Flying T Club members can get, if you want to look as cool as Josh Hoover in a press conference, go give money to the Flying T Club.
Josh Hoover looks pretty cool in his press conferences.
Looks pretty cool in his
press
conferences.
And he does quite a few of them, because he's at every post-game press conference, because every time Mark Cohen says, hey, who do you guys want? I just say quarterback.
Quarterback. Not even the quarterback, not even
just
Josh, just quarterback.
Quarterback.
I want him to just send out just like some one of the delightful walk-ons next time. You said quarterback, you didn't say which one. I'd actually love to talk to.
It's true, and he could have pulled that on Saturday if I had just said quarterback, because Ken Seals also played. Yeah. And so he could have just rolled Ken Seals out post-game. Would have loved to talk to Ken Seals.
I would have loved Franklin Estrada and Ken Seals press conference yesterday. I would have been A-okay with that.
They got it done at the end of the game. They got some reps because it was a blowout. You love to see it. For them, for the team, for the vibes, all of it is great. Melissa, before we get into the game, though, also do need to shout out Dave Campbell's Texas Football. We are a part of the Republic of Football Network, which means if you search Republic of Football Network wherever you get your podcasts, you will find a feed with this show, along with a show for every other D1 program in the state of Texas. That's TCU, SMU, Texas, Texas Tech, Texas A&M, Baylor, but also Rice and Sam Houston State and UTSA and UTEP. It's a really cool collection of shows of insiders who cover the programs like nobody else. You will be the most informed Texas college football fan if you listen to the Republic of Football Network. If that's too much, though, if that's overwhelming, if you're like, I don't have time to listen to 13 different podcasts every single week, you can just subscribe to Frogs Insider. Again, just search Frogs Insider wherever you get your podcasts. Go to the YouTube channel, subscribe over there. You can see our faces while we talk, which some people like, apparently. Other people just like asking about where Maddie Shear is all the time in the comments. Anywho, if you want to know where Maddie Shear is, listen to the show or just hit us in the comments below and ask where's Maddie Shear.
Yeah, we will have an update today. Not a great detailed one, but we do have an update.
We have information for you. Shout out to to Dave Campbell's Texas Football and the Republic of Football Network for allowing us to continue to bother them consistently.
It's just very obvious they must not listen to the show. Like, it's got to be that, right?
Oh, no.
It's got to be that.
Craven has not, Craven has not even thought about clicking play on one of our episodes. Not a single one.
Not a single time.
Probably for everybody's best.
Yes.
Though. What was I going to say? Oh, YouTube channel. Melissa, we have some things to resolve here.
We have news.
Because not only have we eclipsed the 1,000 subscriber mark, which we did before Halloween, we set a Halloween goal of, hey, get us to 1,000 subscribers. You guys went nuts and got us there a day early, which was crazy. We're closing in on 1,200 subscribers now.
Oh God, that means we're going to have to make another one of these.
Nah, but remember, we did say we would, but remember, we set the next goal at 100,000. So like,
we're good for a while.
We got time.
Maybe
we got time. Depending on the pace, maybe we'll insert another milestone there. But right now it's 100K. So I have talked on the podcast before about what I have chosen for you to do as far as the challenge is concerned. It's the Saltiest Chip Challenge. Y'all can just Google it. There's a really wonderful video that Clark Rucker sent me of a very pleasant older British man doing this challenge and almost fully dying. So I thought that's a great challenge for Melissa to try and do. I have since purchased the chip. It is en route. It is currently stuck at customs, Melissa.
Oh God!
Because I had to order it. I had to order it from Germany. So, we'll see when it gets here. But it is here. It is bought and paid for. So I really hope it does get here. It was a little bit more pricey than I was hoping to spend on a chip. But, anyways, you had an idea for what I had to do.
Yeah.
As well.
I have 3 ideas, actually. And since I'm having a hard time deciding which one of them to do, I am going to leave it up to the people. And I will be posting a Twitter poll when the podcast posts. So Monday-ish, morning-ish. But my 3 options for Jamie, and we both, Jamie and I both come to grips with what's going to win here. But I want to give the people some options. I want people's voices to be heard here. So number 1, like the world's sourest candy challenge. So a food, dueling food challenges, fine. Mm-hmm. Number 2, I found a durian supplier. And if you guys, I had Jamie look up durian during the TCU men's basketball game on Friday night. And the first thing on the Wikipedia was an unpleasant odor. I believe feet, like stinky feet is what durian has been compared to.
So before we go to the third option, and I just want to stop on durian for a second.
Okay, please, by all means.
First of all, because you also said in this conversation, I've heard it tastes good.
Yeah.
It's
if
just
you can get past the smell.
That's really bad. I live with 2 boys who despise showering, my children, and they smell terrible all the time, and their room smells like feet. So my question is the durian really worse than like a middle school boy's bedroom? So
again, is another person who spends a lot of time around, teenage boys. Again, I said this the other day, and I need to. I'm a teacher. Really I got to do better. I've got to do this differently. But the difference is durian is illegal to eat indoors some places.
Is America one of those places?
I honestly have not done the research because I don't think it's very widely available here to know that. But I think that it would be terrible. And I think even if it tastes good, you still have to get past the point of taking it to your nose and into your mouth. And so I do think it would be terrible. But that might be a good argument. Oh, did you find more information?
I found laws. There aren't any laws in the United States specifically about durian.
Okay.
But many parts of the world where the fruit grows have bans on it. Durian is banned from public transportation and hotels in many Southeast Asian countries, including Thailand, Singapore, Hong Kong, and Japan. The fruit's strong odor can linger on people, clothing, and taste buds for hours. It can be detected from across a room.
So again,
in Singapore, passengers must consume or dispose of durian before entering the metro system, or they risk a 500 SGD, a $380 fine.
Wow.
Hotel employees are trained to look for guests who try to bring durian into the hotel.
So again, might be slightly worse than your son's stinky feet. Potentially. Maybe not.
If people vote for it, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. But that does leave us to option number 3, which is, I don't want to say is the one I'm rooting for, because again, I this is a democratic system and I just want the people to be happy. But having Jamie shave his mustache into a handlebar style and wear that for, we haven't really determined the amount of time, but we do have to remember you do have a professional job and meet with important people.
This is true.
But for a to be determined amount of time, depending on when he does it and how long he can professionally do it for.
If the mustache wins, if the vote comes in time and the mustache wins, I will do. If the mustache wins, I will do handlebar mustache in public for TCU's bowl game, wherever it is.
Oh, I like that.
I will go to the bowl game with a handlebar mustache.
Okay, I do like that, and then have to cover it, and we'll have to record.
Yeah,
we'll
do live stream, post game, whatever. We'll do the shows. I'll do all of the normal media stuff. Handlebar mustache.
Yeah, I think that is perfect. So those will be your options. Sour candy challenge, whatever. Not really excited about that one, but needed a third option. And I will also say, if you want to suggest something in the comments, we are open to suggestions. And if we get
are we?
Well, yeah, but like within reason. Okay. So, but yeah, I think handlebar mustache or durian sounds delightful. And like I said, I am truly hoping for the handlebar mustache.
Look,
but
I think this is also a referendum on my abilities as a spicy food eater, that you're not including any kind of spice challenge.
Been there, done that. Like, that's my thing is I'm
so good at them.
Well, I want to see something new. I think that it's time for, you can be challenged, in new and exciting ways. And so we're here for a new and exciting weight challenge. I just hope that at my advanced age that amount of sodium doesn't kill me. And if it does, I don't want you to feel guilty, but I just want you to know you did this. So, okay, good. You know who else doesn't feel guilty, Jamie? Sonny Dykes.
Sonny Dykes for beating that Oklahoma State ass on Saturday night.
For potentially, you think the seat's hot up in Stillwater for old Mike Gundy?
Yes, Mike Gundy's seat.
Yeah,
is hot.
I think this is it, right?
It always runs warm, and then a couple of years ago when he started to do like the OAN bit, and then just all the weird stuff he's been saying. He's been trying to take new jobs for like a decade. He wanted the LSU job, right? And I think there comes a point, and TCU fans saw this with Gary, where the amount of shenanigans and tomfoolery finally crossed the threshold of what the administration and the university will put up with. And I think we're creeping pretty close to that line with Gundy, especially after the election night 11 p.m. apology that he had to issue for essentially, in so many words, saying that Oklahoma State fans were too poor to criticize him and critique the job that he was doing. So yes, I don't know if Mike Gundy gets fired. I'm going to say that. But I do think there comes a time where even the winningest coach in football program history will suffer consequences for continued stuff that he shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely feels like, in addition to, like you said, the off-the-field shenanigans, it is so parallel to kind of the end of the Patterson era at TCU, when you have these kind of emeritus coaches that have been around for so long, but at some point you need a new voice in the room. The voice gets stale, the system gets stale. He lost his excellent defensive coordinator, and all of a sudden looks a lot more mortal. And you just kind of wonder, for a program that has so much opportunity and had such high expectations to fall off to this level, can it continue now that they don't have their big money donor, unfortunately passed away. And so I don't know if there's anybody there. I don't know what his buyout would look like. I don't know any of those things, but it certainly seems like it's going to be hard for him to survive this season. And with going winless in conference play, a very real possibility, that could be the final nail in Pistol Pete's coffin.
Yeah, I mean they're 3-7 on the season. They're 0-7 in conference play, and they have a bye this week, just like TCU. But their last two their last two conference games are a visit from Texas Tech, and then they go on the road to Colorado. Both of whom I think are in much, much, much better shape than Oklahoma State is currently.
And both will have. I mean, Colorado especially will have something significant to play for, very likely on that last day of the season. And Texas Tech is still not completely out of the mix, but very likely out of the mix, but should be playing for bowl placement too.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot on the line those last couple weeks for teams in those schools' positions. So we could very realistically be looking at 3-9 Oklahoma State when I think the consensus nationally and on this show also was that this would be a top third team in the conference this year, just because of the pieces that they were returning, the fact that they played in the Big 12 championship a season ago. Ollie Gordon is still excellent. We saw him have some really nice moments on Saturday night, even though he's struggled a lot this year. But just for some reason, it hasn't all come together. Gundy, when he's not bashing the fan base, has been for being poor. He has been bashing the fan base for being poor by saying that Oklahoma State doesn't have the NIL that others do, and has criticized Oklahoma State for that pretty openly for the last couple of years now, saying that the guys that they are getting are equal to the resources that they have, essentially. And I think he's put a lot of blame on that for the production we're seeing, or lack of thereof, from this team right now.
Which is an argument that falls somewhat on deaf ears when you consider that you brought everybody back from a team that was very, very good, and the expectations that were put on you were because you were returning so much to your production. So yeah, it's just a messy situation in Stillwater, and that fan base deserves better, 100%.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, I don't hate them.
And look,
hate for them.
It's not like they had the easiest Big 12 schedule this year, but they also didn't have the hardest Big 12 schedule this year. They did not play Iowa State. They did not play. Who am I missing here?
Kansas State. Did they play?
No, they did. They did play Kansas State. So here's their Big 12 schedule. They lost to Utah, 22-19. They lost to Kansas State, 42-20. They lost to West Virginia, 38-14. They gave BYU that really nice run for their money in Provo back in mid-October. They lost at Baylor, 38-28. They lost to Arizona State, 42-21. Then they lost to TCU, 38-13. That's 5 of the 7 games by double digits, and like 4 of those 7 games by at least 20 points.
Yeah,
which is not great.
So all of that to say, Oklahoma State issues aside, when we kind of look at this win in that context, what did we learn about TCU Saturday night? Because it was happy to get a win, happy to get to bowl eligibility. Obviously, some of the same issues have remained all season, but you do see, if nothing else, I think this team really starting to believe in itself and show a level of confidence that we didn't see much of last year, and that we didn't see through that difficult stretch, starting with the SMU game and that kind of string of losses that seemed like it was going to torpedo the season.
Yeah, I think you the takeaway from this win for TCU is that you did what you were supposed to do. Right, and that's the thing that we've seen more since the first bye than prior to that with this team, is taking care of business. And so I think that in and of itself is a really nice step in the right direction for TCU, because we didn't see them take care of business against UCF. We didn't see them take care of business against Stanford. We didn't see them take care of any sense of business against SMU. And we barely saw them take care of business against Kansas right before the bye. So the fact that they've come out and in 3 of these last 4 games just done the thing and had really solid wins, I think that is another indicator that, like you said, this team is starting to believe in itself. They've got a lot of confidence right now, but also that some of these guys are growing up. I thought J.P. Richardson made a really nice point after the game on Saturday night when he was talking about Josh Hoover. And he's like, he's still really young. This is his, this was his 15th start, and we're at the point now where that stops really becoming an excuse, I think. But the reality is that his first 2 years in college, he went in to spring ball and fall camp with the idea that I'm probably not going to play a whole lot. I'm going to be ready to play. I'm going to work like I'm going to play, but I'm probably not going to play. This is the first year where he had spring and fall as the dude. And he's grown a tremendous amount, I think, this year. We've seen it in these last few games, especially because he hasn't turned the ball over. He's run a little bit more out of the pocket when it's starting to collapse. He's made, for the most part, much better decisions with the football when he's throwing it. I think the Savion Williams direct snap package has also taken a lot of pressure off of him. He doesn't have to throw it 45 or 50 times anymore. And we're seeing a lot of other guys kind of grow and develop this year as well. I want to say specifically, I haven't noticed Colton Deary in a month.
It's the best compliment you can give an offensive lineman.
And you go into PFF and you look at his grades, and he's got great pass blocking grades the last 4 games. He's got improving run blocking grades the last 4 games. James Brockermeyer had a really highly graded game. I know he had a couple penalties that negated first downs on Saturday night. That's something that they got to clean up. But we're seeing a little bit of an improvement along the offensive line. We're seeing improvement from the quarterback. We know what they've got from a skill position standpoint. We've seen the defense get better. Now, they struggled against the run heavily against Baylor. They struggled against the run at times on Saturday night as well. But now you're getting a bye week, and you think, okay, well, there's an opportunity maybe to get Marcus Steele back, maybe to get Hakeem Hajijaliah back, and there you're starting interior tackles. And then maybe that takes another step forward in these last 2 games of the year when you've got an Arizona team that really can't run the ball at all, and then a Cincinnati team that the wheels really looked like they fell off against West Virginia on Saturday, with Brendan Sorsby making some of the most ridiculous decisions I think I've ever seen him make. And I watched him play when he was at Indiana. So, I think that there's a real opportunity to continue to take steps forward. That wouldn't be the case if they didn't go out and do what they needed to do on Saturday against an Oklahoma State team that was never going to come out of there with a win, but could have made things interesting because they've done it a couple times already this year.
Well, I also think, in regards to Josh Hoover and the offense as a whole, is I think that 15 games as a starter, I think Kendall Briles and Sonny Dykes are comfortable with who Josh Hoover is right now. I mean, you mentioned he only had a spring and fall as a guy, but he didn't even have a spring because he was out. So he's really only had one fall camp in his second season to learn how to be a starting quarterback. But I asked Sonny about this last Saturday night. Is one of the things that they've done. They've had 2 clean games where they haven't turned it over. It's also the 2 lowest attempts. Sorry, that was just my phone fell over. The 2 lowest attempts that Hoover has had since LIU. And so I don't think Josh Hoover is going to be an incredibly successful quarterback throwing the ball 45 times a game. He should not lead the country in passing attempts. I don't think that is where he's going to be most successful, not just because of him, but because of the way this TCU team is constructed and what defenses are able to do when the pass rush, when you anticipate someone's going to drop back 45, 50 times. And so by finding something with Savion Williams in a direct snap and at the running back position, by finally establishing something a little bit with Trent Battle, Cam Cook had a really nice game on Saturday. He seemed to look more like what we thought he might be in the beginning of the season. It's just taken him 2 months. And again, it's his first real opportunity to get snaps. But those guys are growing up. They are rounding into form. And I think there's finally a comfort level with how to use some of these pieces. You've mentioned this before. I think you might have asked Sonny about this last night too, but, and Savion brought it up as well. Being able to get Eric McAllister on the field a little bit more by putting Savion Williams in the backfield. I mean, these are all creative ways that they've attacked TCU's perceived weaknesses and adapted the offense in order to put players in their best position to succeed. I don't know that was the case through the first 6 weeks of the year. And now it feels like they're finally figuring this out, asking Josh to do the right amount of things, without putting so much on his shoulders as still a young quarterback. The excuses are over. At 15 starts, you are a starting quarterback in a Power 4 conference, period, end of sentence. But I think letting him grow into the position instead of just saying, hey, we need you to be the guy, has obviously benefited TCU in a lot of ways, and is a huge reason why they've won 3 out of their last 4 and finally look like a team that is capable of continuing to win football games in a variety of ways.
Yes, fully agree. And I think that shows not only a level of development for. Wow, I totally blanked. What that shows to me, Melissa, is that
Thanks.
not only are the players capable of developing and learning, but so is his coaching staff.
Yeah.
And I think that's been one of the questions that we've had, and I think you and I have asked this question on the show, is Sonny Dykes has been a guy who can identify what the problem is, and he's been a guy that can identify what the challenges are. Can he also be the guy that develops a plan to correct those issues? Can he be the guy that develops a plan, or can his staff develop a plan to get over that hurdle that they see in front of them that they've already identified? And I think the answer right now, especially on the offensive side of the ball, is yes. And I think the answer lies in what I'm lovingly calling the Willcat with Savion Williams, because we've seen some really cool, really well thought out wrinkles off of this direct snap to your big wide receiver who can run quite a bit. But I noticed something as I was kind of poking around PFF today, Melissa, as I was writing my snap count article for Horned Frog Blitz, and that is Savion Williams, and I'm going to do this kind of from memory. Let me see if I can. Oh, there's the article right there. Gosh, so great. Savion Williams, over the last 4 games, here are his snap counts, going back to Utah when we really started to see them do this direct snap stuff pretty significantly. 59 at Utah, 41 against whoever was after Utah, who's now
Texas Tech.
Thank you, Texas Tech. 42 against Baylor, 29 against Oklahoma State. Here are the PFF grades for those 4 games: 60.3 against Utah, 71.2 against Texas Tech, 77.3 against Baylor, 86.5 against Oklahoma State. So as he's gotten fewer snaps, he's becoming more efficient. And the way that they're using him as a weapon out of the backfield, both running and pass catching and passing at least once, has turned this offense into a much more efficient offense. They were 5 of 6 in the red zone on Saturday night. Yes, they missed a field goal in the red zone. Yes, they settled for a field goal another time, but 4 touchdowns out of 6. If you told a TCU fan in 2023, hey, you're going to go into this game and you're going to get 4 touchdowns and 6 red zone appearances, they would have kissed you on the mouth. That's how inefficient that offense was a year ago. And so to be at the point now where we can criticize the offense and say, well, they stalled out the first 2 drives in the red zone, but then the next 4 times they were in there, they scored. I think that in and of itself is an improvement. It all comes back to that Savion Williams package, and it shows that, hey, Kendall Briles and Sonny Dykes recognized what they had on their hands. They recognized that the offense was unbalanced. It was out of whack. They were asking Hoover to do too much. And they created a solution that so far has really been a solution. And now, will it continue to be a solution? I know that everybody has some questions about the sustainability of using Savion in the backfield. I think that's why we've seen his snap count come down as far as it has. But hey, if he's going to get 30 snaps a game and he's going to have the ball in his hands 15 to 17 times a game, I'm okay with that. Because like you said, it gets McAllister on the field. You've still got Besh and JPR that you want to get involved. Cam Cook, looks like he's taking a step forward. Trent Battle looked pretty good as well with the ball in his hands on Saturday night. You've got other weapons. It's not like you're building the whole plan out of Savion Williams, but you're using him in a way that allows him to have the biggest impact and it doesn't take away from other guys also having an impact.
And I do think that it's fair to question the sustainability. I mean, Sonny said he can barely get out, or Savion can barely get out of bed on Sunday, and he's not really practicing until Wednesday. Savion talked about how much more painful getting hit as a running back is and getting hit as a wide receiver. It's obvious the wear and tear. But even if you want to look beyond that, I think it's fair to still have questions about can Sonny Dykes take that approach long term, because at the end of the day, I mean, you've almost assuredly got 3 more games of Savion Williams, and then all of these problems reassert themselves. But that is a topic for another show. I still want to see. I mean, I think the biggest thing is if 2023 was Sonny Dykes' first year, and this was year 2, and we never had the 2022 experience, do we feel like TCU is building a program in a way that can sustainably be competitive in the Big 12. And you'd probably feel a lot better about things if you just looked at the last 2 seasons, but you'd probably still be disappointed. And I guess like that's ultimately my thing. I'm not unhappy. It looks like TCU's got a very realistic shot to get to 8 wins, potentially to win out and get to 8 wins in the regular season. Likely to have a bowl game that could get them to 8 or 9 wins. So they're going to be right about where they were expected. The over/under was 7.5. They were expected to finish, I think, seventh or seventh or tenth. They're currently in seventh. So they probably are right about where they need to be, or maybe even potentially overachieving. But I think that where the bar was set is still what's disappointing to me. When you look at how the schedule played out, TCU had among the easiest schedules of any Big 12 team in the conference. They avoided BYU, they avoided Colorado, they avoided K-State. They don't even have to play like a West Virginia or an Iowa State. I mean, they're the heavy hitters, the teams that have proven to be consistently the best and the toughest to play against this season are nowhere to be found on TCU's schedule. They were dealt a very, very positive hand. They were not able to take advantage of it early. I mean, if you flip the UCF game, you probably feel a lot differently about things. Losing to Baylor on the road and a last-second field goal, like I can almost live with that even. But it just feels like such a missed opportunity. And so what you need to see, and why I think it was so important for TCU to get to bowl eligibility, is you need to see that positive momentum continue. You went into the offseason a season ago with so much negative energy and so much that needed to change. It's so much healthier for a program, for a team, for a culture to have to go and make adjustments, not wholesale changes. And so now you hope this is where the recruiting they've done on both sides of the line starts to develop, where we saw a true freshman get a series Saturday night. He looked serviceable for his first real game experience. That's good.
Yeah.
Ryan Hughes, right? I read your Snap Count article today because I'm a good friend. But I think that we're starting to see that maybe the talent is in the pipeline, and if those players can develop and be contributors sooner rather than later, if they can have to fill fewer gaps and holes through the portal while still being able to go out and recruit talent that can take them over the top, that's how you become the type of team that can consistently find itself playing for a Big 12 championship. It's not going to get easier because, Iowa State, obviously, they've kind of come back to earth here, but Campbell seems to have them back playing the type of football they want to play. Kansas State is always going to be a problem. We'll see what happens with Deion Sanders in Colorado, but if he runs it back, all of a sudden Colorado looks like a very, very dangerous program in the Big 12, and Deion has shown that he can recruit, he can develop, and he's put a coaching staff out there that's, I mean, God, I hate to give Colorado their flowers, but they 100% deserve it. They're playing great football. Texas Tech is always going to be kind of in the mix. You cannot go 1-3 against in-state competition again. Period. Like that is devastating to the program when you've got Houston with some momentum too. I mean, there's so many variables going around that could really determine if this ship is going to float or sink. And it seems like at the very least right now, things are back on the right track, that they're moving the right direction, that they have a plan, they're executing that plan, and that there's reason to be hopeful for the future and to believe this team can get back to being what we've all deservedly or not felt like should be the standard for TCU football.
I think it should be the standard for TCU football is competing for conference championships and reaching the playoff consistently. And there's when you look at the talent in the surrounding area, their ability to recruit talent, they got the #1 recruiting class in the country or in the conference for 2025.
What? Breaking news.
Breaking news. Aggregate that, nerds. We've seen them recruit at a level that is considered above average for a P4 school. I would say they recruit better than some P2 schools at this point. And at some point that talent has to bear out on the field in a meaningful way. I think that we're still in the kind of the middle portion of that cycle, that first development cycle for Sonny Dykes. We're not going to see Ryan Hughes be the starting left tackle on this team next year, I don't think. If he is, then he either had a fantastic spring or something else happened, or there are a lot of variables between now and then. But it was good to see that he was developed enough as a true freshman at this point to step onto the field and get 24 snaps against a Big 12 opponent. As overwhelmed and overmatched as Oklahoma State might have been, that's still progress. You're talking about, we've spent the last 5 or 6 weeks now banging the drum for true freshman Jeremy Payne, who got here in August, to get more snaps, right? Cam Cook is a redshirt freshman. He's still got a lot of growing up to do. Josh Hoover is a sophomore. He's got a lot of growing up to do. The wide receivers, pretty veteran. Some of the offensive line, pretty veteran, right? You've got a fifth-year tackle at right tackle that has essentially lost his role now to a sophomore in Ben Taylor Whitfield. And you look at the defense, and there's a lot more seniority there. So maybe there's some turnover that we're going to experience for the defense next year that we're overlooking at this moment. But I think that there is still progress to be made this year. There's an opportunity for progress next year, but you also know, because the schedule was so easy this year, it's probably going to be more challenging next year.
Yeah.
You're probably going to have Kansas State back on the schedule. You're going to have Colorado and BYU and Iowa State and West Virginia. And depending on where those teams are at any given point, things could be a lot more challenging to get to 8 or 9 or 10 wins next season. So part of me is a little disappointed that TCU hasn't gotten fully rolling this year to the way that we would have liked them to. Part of me understands that, where they are as far as development goes, it kind of makes sense, which is why I picked them to be 8-4 before the season even started. And knowing that next year the road could be more challenging for a lot of reasons outside of their control, what are you doing now, not just at the end of the season, but right now to the end of the season, to signing day, and then bowl games, spring ball, and beyond, to make sure that your team is not only prepared for what they did, prepared for the schedule they played this year, but prepared for the possibility of an even greater challenge in 2025.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, this team seems to like playing together. And one thing Sonny Dykes has consistently emphasized is how much he likes these guys and how much they like each other. And so I don't think this is going to be one of those things where you kind of backwards walk into bowl season and you're playing in a bowl no one's ever heard of and you're not excited about it. I think these guys will genuinely be happy to keep playing, and I think that they'll take that time of the development cycle very, very seriously. And so I do think it will ultimately benefit them. It'll be fun to see where they land. There's an opportunity to play in some fun bowl games against some quality opponents. I think it's a positive thing. And after a year where you don't play in a bowl and where you just beat a team that has a chance to go winless in the conference to get to bowl eligibility, I'm going to appreciate that opportunity. And I'm going to get to hope that we go somewhere cool and that you have a handlebar mustache when we get there. Those are all the things that I am personally hoping for. And I'm also hoping for a conveniently timed bowl because I have to travel to California as well. So overall,
you have to go to wine
I know
country.
I have to go to wine country. Yeah. Winning is always better than losing.
True.
And I am going to appreciate a win. I'm not going to stop. I'm never going to just be like, hey, a win's, yay, we won, good for us. I think there's still room to be critical and ask questions and do all of those things. But at the end of the day, this team is playing much better football than they were a month ago. And I think you're absolutely right. And let's appreciate. And again, the run defense is kind of fallen apart here the last couple of weeks, the injuries, et cetera, et cetera. But you do start to see, I think, that where there's signs of progress and what Avalos is trying to do. The bye week, I think the guys got it a little bit more, and I think we'll see that even more after another bye week. So I think I went from being like, maybe this guy isn't the guy, to really, really hoping that he comes back next year with an opportunity to continue to mold the players into the positions that he uses to have success. Because I would love to see year 2 of Avalos' system, and I think that there could be a lot of positive growth with the continuity of keeping him at DC and being able to fill the gaps, to fill the roles that have made him so successful for such a long time.
I fully agree. All right, let's run down the scoring plays in this game before we move on to basketball really quickly, just to kind of say that we did that. So Kyle Lemmerman opens the game with a 32-yard field goal on TCU's first drive. It was a really impressive drive all the way down into the red zone. Then we saw 3 straight incompletions, wondered where the running game was against an Oklahoma State defense that is allowing almost 250 rushing yards a game. That resolved itself, obviously, a little bit later in the game. But they get on the board in the first quarter with a field goal to go up 3-0, and then 2 drives later, after a missed field goal, I think TCU had one of its best drives of the season, and it ended with arguably Cam Cook's best run of the season, where we've criticized Cam Cook, I think, this year for being indecisive, right? There's a difference in being a patient runner and an indecisive runner, and I think he's mostly been an indecisive runner, or he's been impatient insofar as, I'm just going to bounce it outside and see if I can't get to the edge. In this particular moment, I think he was patient. He saw a hole develop on the right side, even though the run was designed to go to the left. And then he hit that hole, got a really great block from Jack Besh on a DB, hit the corner, and then all of a sudden, 18 yards later, he's in the end zone.
Walking backwards, which I still stand by is the
photo
hardest thing. Like, just the
Yes.
coolest looking thing in sports. Like, going backwards in the end zone as a running back.
He ended up leading the team in rushing no, he didn't, but he had 7 carries for 47 yards, which is an average of 6.7 yards a carry, which is pretty good for him.
Pretty good.
In the second quarter, TCU added to their lead. They go up 17-0 on a Savion Williams rushing touchdown. They get down to the goal line. They do a couple different things, and then eventually they're just like, you know what? Let's just do the thing. And they give it to Savion. He dives into the end zone off the right side, gets his first rushing touchdown of the day. He gets a receiving touchdown on the following drive. A very nice pass from Josh Hoover. He bullies his way into the end zone over a DB. And this is another photo that you got that I really enjoyed because it's him kind of just mashing this defensive back into the end zone. And meanwhile, everybody else in the photo, both teams, is like face down in the dirt.
Yep.
It's like there was a full-on Anchorman style brawl in the background of this photo while Savion's just absolutely destroying a smaller defensive back.
Love to see it.
So TCU carries a 24-0 lead into a halftime. Everyone's feeling great. The vibes are high. Oklahoma State comes out in the third quarter, and all of the defensive issues that we saw in the second half against Baylor seemed to crop back up again. Brennan Presley got going. He caught a couple passes. Ollie Gordon got going. He runs for a couple. He has a couple really nice runs, including a 2-yard touchdown run that gets Oklahoma State on the board. Then the Pokes thinking, hey, if we go for 2 starting now, it's a 3-possession game, not a 4-possession game. So they go for 2. They don't get it as Alan Bowman's pass is deflected by Johnny Hodges. I thought about making a little tweet there, like it was a mini immaculate deflection, because there was a tight end running completely free in the end zone over the middle of the field. And if Hodges doesn't tip that pass, it's definitely a 2-point conversion for Oklahoma State. But lower stakes. Anyways, TCU responds to that touchdown with another Cam Cook rushing touchdown, his second of the day. Another good drive from TCU that included I believe this was the J.P. Richardson shovel pass that he took about 17 yards down inside the 5-yard line. This included a 3rd and 14 conversion where Hoover finds J.P. Richardson among 3 defenders, and I think at that moment at the ball left Josh Hoover's hand, I heard you to my left say, "Oh," and then J.P. catches the ball, and you're like, "That was a good throw. That was a dot." So that was that drive that puts TCU up 31-6 with a Cam Cook touchdown. Bowman and Oklahoma State. Look, Ollie Gordon ran for almost 6 yards a carry. That's the most he's had this year. He had the most rushing yards he's had against a Power 5 opponent. Against TCU, he had 129 rushing yards, or 121 rushing yards. There were a lot of things that were not good about TCU's run defense in this game, and we're only talking about it because it's a critique. But TCU, did the thing. So Ollie Gordon running the ball, doing great. They score a touchdown with 13 minutes left in the fourth quarter to cut into TCU's lead, 31-13. They stopped going for 2 there, which they stopped chasing points. I guess at that point, Gundy kind of knew what their fate was. And then Jordan Bailey, with probably the highlight of the game, takes a little swing pass. No, it was just a handoff.
It was jet sweep. It was reverse. It was reverse, yeah.
That's what it was. It was reverse. 59 yards to the house. There's a flag on the play. It's originally a holding call on Eric McAllister, and then he literally talks his way out of it.
Yep.
He goes over to the official. He's like, I let go just in time. He still had a chance to make the tackle. The officials gather. They decide that, Eric's right. They pick up the flag. Oklahoma State fans are posting this screenshot all over the place. They're super pissed.
And fair.
It's a 59-yard
wouldn't
rushing
have mattered.
touchdown. It wouldn't matter. But it's a
wouldn't
59-yard rushing touchdown. A very nice moment from Jordan Bailey, who has kind of paid his dues in a reserve role, and I'm sure we're going to see him more these next 2 games. I say that. I was confident that Jeremy Payne was going to see some more snaps after his game against Kansas. But anyways, that was the final score of the game. TCU forces 3 turnovers. They don't turn the ball over. Overall, a really nice performance. The Frogs post their highest rushing total of the year with 175 rushing yards, which still is not great, but it is what it is. Overall, though, a nice, complete, clean, and relatively efficient win for the Horned Frogs, which is really all you can ask for against an Oklahoma State team that hasn't won a conference game heading into a bye week.
Yeah, I mean, I think I told Jeremy before the game, before you'd gotten there, that Ollie Gordon was going to rush for 140 yards and TCU was going to win easily. So I was pretty close on that. I was pretty close. I knew this would be the Ollie Gordon might be back narrative game because I figured he was due for a big day, especially with how TCU defended, in air quotes, the run against Baylor. You know, I think it's interesting. Cam Cook led all TCU running backs with 7 carries. They definitely spread out the wealth. 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 guys got carries if you include Hoover and Estrada, and nobody had more than 7. Savion only had 5. So again, it's definitely leaning into the bye committee. You saw a lot of different guys get targets in the passing game as well. And if that's what works, that's what works. And this is the time to give opportunities to guys. You know, you hope that you can do similar to what you did on Saturday night against Arizona, which is an equally a struggling team right now, but they do have an elite talent at quarterback and wide receiver. So you hope that you can see kind of more guys get opportunities, and you just kind of got to keep playing and mixing and matching. You're at the point now where you can play guys without burning red shirts if they haven't already used up their allotment. So I'm hoping that we continue to see them just try things and kind of throw stuff against the wall and see what sticks.
I love throwing stuff against the wall and seeing what sticks, especially when I'm in the kitchen. Melissa, let's move on though to there's no segue there. We're just hard pivoting. Let's move on because hoops had a busy weekend as well. Let's start with the men's game because we were both there, and then we'll move on to the women's game that happened earlier today because you were there as well. TCU 67, Florida Gulf Coast 51.
Ugly.
This was a game where all of the issues from a season ago seemed to crop up for TCU in one way or another on the offensive side of things, and a little bit defensively too. We'll get into that. But the reality is that this was a step up in competition from Florida A&M, who I think was like 340th in KenPom. Florida Gulf Coast was like 220 something in KenPom. So a little bit of a step up in competition, still like a Q4 game. And TCU did the thing that we saw a lot last year with their guards, and we talked about this while the game was happening: over dribbling, over penetrating, guys being stagnant without the ball, a lot of just stagnant offense. Part of that was Florida Gulf Coast's 1-3-1, Melissa.
Yeah, they did great.
But really, it was a challenging day for the offense. They righted it in the last 7 minutes, but I still don't think, and tell me if you disagree, I don't think that's going to be a common occurrence as much as it was last year. I think we'll still see them stall out at times just because there are I'm still much more confident in this batch of guards.
Oh, yeah.
Than I was a season ago just because of their point guard capabilities.
Well, and I think the difference, and I know that we both want to talk about this kid. There are guys on this team that can go get a bucket in a way that I don't feel that we've had in a while, where they don't need anybody to set them up. They don't need someone to create an open look for them. They don't need to get fed and go get a bucket. And we saw kind of the best and worst of that in Vashon Alette. On Friday night, when the offense had totally stalled out, he's a guy that can drive, he can get to the rim, and he can finish, he can draw fouls, and he makes his free throws. But then I think he also, and I've been thinking about this a lot, because I wonder if when you were the dude at he was at Old Dominion, or no,
Old Dominion.
Old Dominion, he was at Old Dominion. When you were the dude at Old Dominion and the guy with the ball in his hands most of the time, is it hard to realize you don't have to be that guy all the time at TCU, right? Because the talent level around you is likely greater. And so I think that's just an adjustment. And we both tried to ask Jamie Dixon about things Friday night.
In the mood. He took his keys to the press conference. He was ready to go home.
It was one of the funniest things I've seen. And I was trying to get at, and I'm absolutely will own that I did not do a great job phrasing this question, but of that at this early point in the season, when you have so many new faces, and they have an entirely new roster basically, other than Ernest Uday, how much do you just let guys go out and hoop versus how much do you teach them to operate within your system? And he talked about all the practices. It's totally different when you start playing opposition, right? And so, and I think what he was doing on Friday was letting them hoop a little bit. And in the first half, they looked like they were all just kind of playing at the playground. And one guy would get hot, and then he would dribble the air out of the ball, and then somebody else would take over and he'd dribble out. And there was not a lot of continuity. There wasn't a lot of movement. There wasn't a lot of swinging the ball and making that 1-3-1 shift, because the 1-3-1 is so super vulnerable to a skip pass. And I don't know that I saw a skip pass the entire night.
I think we saw one, and I think it ended up in a. Well, we'll get to him. It was in the second half.
Yeah. So they just weren't doing the things that you do to break down what. And Florida, give them tons of credit. They were athletic. They were fast. They were 100% committed to that. And you have to be 100% committed to a 1-3-1 to execute it well. So I think there is a learning period. There is an adjustment. But what there is this year that we didn't see last year is there's some really strong leadership. I love the way that Frankie Collins talks on the court. He is such a perfect person to be a Jamie Dixon point guard in so many ways. He can push the pace, he plays great defense, and he's super, super vocal, and he's like 100% bought in. He's a Sacramento kid too, also super biased, and I love him so much already. So, but I do think that they have that. They have multiple guys that can go get a shot. Vashawn Alette is one, Frankie Collins is one, Micah Robinson. We'll talk about him too. Showed us a little something there in crunch time, that he's a guy that can create a shot for himself. I've been super impressed with Jace Posey's jumper. I thought that would be a much bigger weakness than it has been. He still has some work to do, but he's making really intelligent shot choices, and his shot looks clean. So the guard play is deeper. It's way more athletic. And I think that it's a little bit more skilled. They just still have to learn how to make it all work together.
Yes, they do. And I agree about Frankie. I want to start there. He hit a 3 to open the game. That's probably his weakest area of his game, especially offensively, is the 3 ball. And he hit one, and it looked great. The shot looked good. He was open. He shot it with confidence. He didn't wait or hesitate or lurch or anything like that. And I think if you can just get him to a place where he has enough confidence in his own offensive ability that he can take advantage of the opportunities when they're there, but still primarily be a facilitator, that's the most dangerous weapon you can have on an offense. And really, truly, and I'm not trying to equate these two guys, but the last time I felt like TCU had that dude was Mike Miles.
Yeah.
Where, Mike was, I think, one of the most underrated passers in college basketball when he was around, because everybody loved to laud him for his ability to get downhill and at the rim, even though he was a smaller guy, his ability to step back and shoot the 3. He played pretty good defense for being undersized with not the longest arms in the world. But he was a very good passer. Damian Baugh was probably the best passer on that team, but Mike Miles was a close second. And TCU has the opportunity in Frankie Collins to recreate some of that screen and roll, dish to a shooter style offense, which I know they want to do, because look at the guys they brought in this year from the portal. They brought shooters, they brought long athletic wings, and they're trusting Ernest to be, the most athletic big man on the court at any given moment, with setting a screen either at the 3 or at the free throw line or off on a wing, and then being able to roll and jump forever to catch a lob pass. I mean, he caught a lob pass from Vashawn Alette at the 3-point line, right? It was insane. And that was one of the ways that they broke the 1-3-1. That was one of the last possessions that FGC ran the 1-3-1, was Vashawn was so irritated, I think, that he's like, whatever. And he just like 2-hand lobs it at the basket. Uday just jumps straight up in the air and dunks it. And Florida Gulf Coast was like, they figured it out.
They figured it out. Baseline runner and a skip pass, man. That's how you beat a 1-3-1.
And so let's get into that, because the last possession that I remember them running the 1-3-1 was Brendan Wenzel in the corner, just taking a pass from Alette, one pump, gets into the zone, and then a skip pass down the baseline to Micah Robinson, who hits an open 3 that put TCU up 9, 58-49, and it was the front end of the midpoint of a 20-5 run to end the game. So TCU struggled on offense. Ernest was out of position quite frequently defensively in the first half. He made some mistakes, some mistakes he won't be able to make in Big 12 play if TCU wants to win a lot of games, getting off his feet, rotating late, or in a couple instances, rotating way too early and just leaving his man for no reason when the defender hadn't, when the guy with the ball hadn't made a decision yet. And So there's some things to clean up there. He played much better defense in the second half, though. He had a block, he had a couple steals, he forced a 3-second violation. But in spite of the struggles, like if the team last year had struggled with Florida Gulf Coast like this, I think we would have said that's a big red flag.
Yeah.
Because we asked questions all year. You asked the question a lot. Does this team have a guy that can go get a bucket? Does this have a dude? This year, I think Vashawn Alette could be the guy.
Yeah.
Frankie Collins could be the guy from a facilitator standpoint. I think we haven't seen anywhere near the best of Trey White or Noah Reynolds yet. And so I think that there are more opportunities for guys to do really great things with this team. But back to this game specifically, I mean, Florida Gulf Coast took a lead 42-40 about halfway through the half, and then all of a sudden TCU's like, all right, we're done with this nonsense, and they went on a run and they put the game away. It was really good to see for game number 2. Like you said, they haven't had a lot of live fire yet. This was their 4th game playing an opponent, and from all accounts, they've made great strides since that Texas scrimmage that nobody got to see, and I think they're glad nobody got to see.
They also mention it a lot, which I love, because you can tell it really stuck with them.
It pissed them off. It pissed them off. Well, they got out-rebounded by 20, and they went 1 of 19 from three-point range. So I would be pissed off about it, too.
Yeah. But I want a team that holds on to that. Like, I want a team that holds on to a loss that isn't really a loss. Because you can't let losses stay with you too much in college basketball, especially when you play in the Big 12. Yeah. But to have something that like didn't impact the overall result of the season, but you can always look back to and be like, yeah, I never want to feel like that again. Like that's might be the best thing that could have happened. You know what I was thinking about as you're talking about Ernest? Ernest and Josh Hoover have probably started about the same number of games at TCU, and it is crazy, the development track. Because I can look at Josh Hoover in 15 starts and say, dude, you're the quarterback, like, you got to be on it. And I can look at Ernest and go, project. Guy's still a project. I have to remember he's still a project. And it's so funny to me how different the sports are and how different playing quarterback versus playing center in college basketball are. If that dude develops even 2 post moves, he is going to be such a superstar. He just because he's going to get better defensively. I don't worry about that because his athleticism is there. His want to is there. And he plays with a motor. He plays with a really high motor, like 94% of the time, and that's pretty good for a 19-year-old 7-footer. But if he can just develop just a little bit of an offensive game, he had a nice little hook shot, but you can tell he just hasn't quite needed to, and he's going to have to if TCU wants to be competitive. And I don't know that he's going to do it this year. I hope he can clean up the things and refine the things like you mentioned with his defensive help, his leaving his feet. His rotation, all of that kind of stuff. But man, if he develops a post move, a second post move, a counter, this team could be really, really good.
Very special. And I mean, he finished, we're talking about him, we're critiquing him. He had 7 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists.
Yeah, the 4 assists were.
He's a great passer. He's shown that part of his game. He only had 2 turnovers, which I thought was a really nice aspect of the game.
He had that little one touch pocket pass
on a fast break.
On a fast break.
Started.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it was Micah who got the layup, and then he had another pass to Micah for a dunk later in that half. He's got some stuff. Like he's looked good, and he only picked up 2 fouls.
Yeah,
right. So
just
there's an improvement there as well. Overall, I mean, we're talking about this game because it was close, but they out-rebounded Florida Gulf Coast by 14. They had 12 offensive rebounds for 11 second chance points. They got 29 points from the bench.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really impressive. 14 of those obviously coming from Vashawn Alette, but you also get, 9 from Micah Robinson. You get 6 from Jace Posey, and I think that's a really nice scoring effort from some of your reserves there. The only 2 guys that didn't score were David Punch and Isaiah Manning, and those guys played 8 and 7 minutes each, respectively. So.
Punch is gonna have to be able to hold his own defensively this year, but I think that's all TCU needs him to do because he's gonna have to be able to play to spell Ernest, or if Ernest does get in foul trouble, which will happen. But he's just got to be able to hold his own on the glass and hold his own defensively. I think that's all you can ask of him as a true freshman. That's not a true center. And Isaiah, I think his length and athleticism and his defense is is good, but I think that Dixon's expecting more of him. He said as much in both post-game press conferences. He has a chance to be a real weapon as a rebounder, I think, at the guard position, the forward position. So, yeah, it'd be nice to see those guys be a little bit more involved in the offense, but that's not where they need to be good right now.
No, and I think that's why I was pointing it out. It's like every other guy scored.
Yeah.
And every other guy scored at least 6. Posey scored 6. Noah Reynolds had 7. Frankie Collins had 7. Ernest had 7. Wenzel had 8. Trey White and Michael Robinson both had 9. Alette had 14. Like, the balance is there. They shot 50% from the floor in the second half, and that's in spite of going only 3 of 11 from deep. They shot almost 79% from the free throw line. They were 11 for 14. The turnovers were a little bit too many. They had 14 against 5 in game 1.
Yeah, that's just over dribbling, in my opinion, against the 1-3-1.
I think 8 of those were in the first half.
Yeah.
In the second half, defensively, that when they decided, hey, it's time to clamp down, they forced 11 turnovers from Florida Gulf Coast and only allowed 8 baskets in the entire half.
Yeah.
So they have shown in the first 2 games an ability to just run away from a team with hot shooting. And then they showed a little bit of, hey, we can get gritty and kind of grind out a clunker and still come out on top. So I think those are 2 really good first games. We'll see them for a third time on Tuesday night when Texas State comes to town. I talked about the KenPom for the first 2 Florida schools. Texas State's another jump up. They're like around 140 in KenPom. So we're starting to creep closer and closer to the top 100 KenPom teams. So that'll be another nice step up in competition for the Frogs to see on Tuesday night, and we'll see how they kind of bounce back from a clunker on Saturday.
And then you go to Ann Arbor, and you get to play a power conference team on the road. This is an anomaly in Jamie Dixon's general scheduling philosophy. It's something he talked about before the season, and knowing that because of the grind, and I think this was smart of him to know because of the grind his team is going to face, and because they are probably going to have a tough go of things, especially early on in the Big 12. Get some name brand schools on your schedule early. Play some power conference opponents. And this is not the Michigan of old, but it's still Michigan. And if you can go to Ann Arbor with that team and get a win, I mean, what that would do for that group's confidence, it would at least get you some national attention too, and the positive variety. I'm very intrigued to see how they look in Ann Arbor next Friday night. I will be splitting time between that and TCU soccer, which we'll talk about. But that to me is going to be a fascinating test, because that's one of those games where you look and say, it is Michigan, but this is a game TCU is more than capable of winning, even on the road.
For sure. And I think another nice thing that I like about this game at this moment, going to Michigan, in the past couple of years, TCU hasn't really played a true road game outside of the Big East Big 12 Challenge as far as non-conference goes, but this is a team with 8 players that are sophomores or younger.
Yeah,
and so a lot of them haven't been on the road in a big environment, and you don't want your first big road environment game to be at Arizona, or at Baylor, or at Kansas, right? You want it to be in a non-conference setting where, hey, you have some jitters. Hey, you drop the game, you lose by 10, whatever it might be. Okay. We took our lick in the non-conference, but now we've got it under our belt. We've got that experience, and we know how to approach it the next time. So I agree. I like the scheduling. I also just like seeing TCU play better teams in non-conference, which is really nice. I think it'll be good. I think this is going to be a really good week to get a better understanding of exactly where this team is. And we haven't been able to say that about a men's basketball team at TCU for a couple of years now, is having a good gauge of who they actually are in mid-November.
Yeah, it'll be great. We've already had an hour, and so I want to make sure I want to talk more about TCU basketball. We have to talk about TCU women's basketball.
We do.
Oh my gosh. You talk about a team that has a lot of growing to do and that's young, and you need to see them develop and you need that experience. Talk about TCU men's basketball. Talk about TCU women's basketball, and that is a well-oiled machine. The way that Mark Campbell has gotten this team to come together, despite the fact they're missing 2 either potential starters or your 2 first players off the bench, and Maddie Shear and Agnes Eminopu, like, I am saying, they shot 45 threes today, Jamie. They shot 45 threes.
Shot 35.6% as a team. That's 16
Yes.
made three-pointers, by the way.
16 made 3-pointers, which is I think the most in like the last 15 years or something like that. Madison Connor was Mark Campbell knowing she was one away from tying the single game record that she set, from getting to tie the single game record. Probably would have beat it tonight. She had five threes in the first quarter. She had 6 in the first half. She nailed a couple more. She was in foul trouble. She picked up her third and fourth foul within about 30 seconds of each other in the third. And then because they had absolutely run away from UNO, she did not play hardly at all in the fourth quarter, but she finished with 30 points. It's her fourth career 30-point game. She has started, I think, 25 games for TCU, so that is pretty impressive. Sedona Prince and Haley Van Lith both had double doubles, and Haley had like back-to-back buckets that were, I think I tweeted it in the moment, of like the difference between really good players, great players, and elite players is how easy they make the game look. And I have never seen a women's basketball player at TCU make the game look as easy as Haley Van Lith does. And it's because of all of the hard work that she puts in. Like, I was thinking back as I was watching her play today to Lauren Hurd and all that she did and all the work that she did, but how hard every single bucket she got was because of how much attention. What a luxury. And Haley's been in this situation before, but what a luxury it must be for her to sit back and go, I'm going to just dish it to Madison Connor for a couple minutes and get teams to forget about me. And then I'm going to score 6 straight. Or, oh, wait a minute. They're so worried about the 3-pointers because we shot 45 of them. Oh, we have a 6'7" girl who has a 6-inch advantage over the person defending her. We can just drop it into her. They got incredible minutes from Deja Merrill today. She played great. Donovan Hunter continues to kind of be I think Campbell called her kind of the point of everything. She is the fulcrum of all that they do offensively and defensively. I'm trying to think of who. Taylor Bigby had an incredible game, had 17 points, like the quietest, most easygoing 17 points you'd ever see. They press almost the entire game, even when they were up big. They finally did back it off near the last 4 or 5 minutes. They get out and run. They fast break. They finish at the rim. They shoot a ton of threes. They make a ton of threes. They run a very almost NBA-esque offense with the 4-out and the pick and roll game. Just the offensive creativity that they're displaying, and then just the ability of these players to execute. I tweeted this today too, I'm going to pound this drum for the next 2 months. Get your butts to Schollmeyer Arena. I was on Football Fans earlier. You know what? Do whatever you want with your time anymore. I get it. It's fine. You know, men's basketball, we know people are going to show up come Big 12 play. Like they always do. People are going to be excited about that program. Be at Schollmeyer Arena and support TCU women's basketball. They have Texas State on Wednesday. Texas State's not going to be great, but they're not a bad program. They dropped 107 today. I would not be shocked to see them drop 100 points on Wednesday. But then NC State comes to town Sunday, and that needs to be a sellout. NC State was a Final Four team a year ago. That is a really, really good team. Mm-hmm. Michigan being a good measurement stick for the men, absolutely. NC State is where the women need to be. I called it today. I am booking a Sweet 16 appearance for this team. I have not seen them play against anybody good. I totally understand that, but I'm just telling you from a watching basketball perspective, as a person who loves women's basketball, who's coached it since she was 16, who's played all of these things, if they are healthy, they have every piece that you need for a team to be successful. And they don't even have to be 100% healthy, because the depth that this team has is really incredible. And what I saw from Merrill and Natalie Mazurek today too, they can afford, they have some depth at the post. They did not have that last year. And they have so much talent at the guard position. Everyone's going to key on Haley Van Lith, and rightfully so. She is an elite, All-American, future pro, all of the things. But when teams decide they want to take her away, Madison Connor's going to knock down 9 threes. Mm-hmm. That's what she did today. And again, it's been against low-level competition, sure. But I'm telling you, I think with a full house Sunday, we could see them absolutely announce themselves on the national stage against NC State. And then after they do that, they've got 3 weeks and they get to play the reigning national champs. So jump on the bandwagon now, support this team. You've got a lot of women's sports to support this week. TCU volleyball still absolutely killing it. TCU soccer is going to host a first-round NCAA tournament game. I know we need to touch on their disappointing finish after a really strong Big 12 tournament. But TCU women's basketball, this has a chance to be a very, very special season. And I don't want to oversell it, but I have 100% bought into the hype. I think this team has a chance to be super, super special. I think they have a chance to be a nationally competitive program, a top 25 type team, a team that with the right seeding could absolutely be a Sweet 16 or beyond team. I've seen enough. I'm all in. I've bought in. I believe in them. I think this team is great.
Sedona Prince finishes with a 17-point, 12 rebound double-double. Haley Van Lith finishes with a 13-point, 12 rebound double-double with 6 assists to lead the team. Like you said, Madison Connor hit 9 3-pointers on the way to 30 points. She matches the same number of 30-point games that Lauren Hurd had in her career at TCU in just 25 games with 4 30-point games. Taylor Bigby, 17 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists as well. This was a really just complete game outside of one number, Melissa, and that's 21 turnovers, which I'm sure Campbell brought up in postgame. Gonna need to clean that up come NC State, but they 37 fast break points, 48 points in the paint. They won the rebounding battle 61-29, right? 61 rebounds. That's not a typo.
Yeah.
And so this is a situation where I totally agree. I think that this team is capable of very big things. I do want to see them against NC State, and that's a week from today. That's a week from today, right? Yeah. Sunday, NC State comes to Schollmeyer. I want to see what they look like against a team that was in the Final Four last year. I'm not saying that I think they'll be bad. I'm just saying that will solidify in my mind exactly what this team can be, or the jumping off point for this team for the remainder of the season. So excited to see them continue to get better. Hey, they weren't kidding though when they said they weren't going to go 3 for 21 from 3-point range again after the first night. So really, really impressive stuff from them. They never trailed. Yeah. In this game.
They missed their first 3 shots, and then I think we're up 27-4 after the first quarter.
There you go.
I don't need to see them against. I've seen enough. You know what? Just fast forward us to March. We're ready.
We're not gonna sim to end. We're gonna watch it happen.
Yeah, it's gonna be a very. I mean, this is a challenging schedule. It's a tough schedule. It's a good conference. There's obviously a lot of hurdles. I have let myself get totally excited about this team though, and I'm okay with that. Like I am 100%. This is not me wearing purple tinted glasses. I mean, it is, but it's also me just being like. But man,
they're going to the Sweet 16.
I did on November 10th after 2 games against 2 opponents that I don't think any of us knew had basketball programs. We are going to the Sweet 16. We're going to clip this.
You're dropping the TCU now. You're just saying we.
Yeah, well, I'm already saving money so that I can make sure I can travel to wherever this is. We're fine. Yeah, no, it's this a we. I'm just thinking, man, like. If I got to be Mark Campbell or I'm on Mark Campbell's staff right now and I looked at this team, in my head I would not be sending this message to my players, but me and my staff would be saying, we have a chance. We have the pieces. We have the opportunity. Like, we just need to keep pushing forward because everything that they want to achieve is directly in front of them, and they're playing with joy and freedom and fun. Madison Connor talked about that after the game. They're never afraid of making a mistake, that they're going to get pulled or they're going to get reprimanded or whatever. They have so much freedom to play free. And when you have that much talent that plays with that level of confidence and that level of togetherness, like that's all as a coach you could ever want. So yeah, I might need to dial it back a little bit, but right now after dropping 107 points, I'm feeling really, really good. So I hope that next Sunday we are having a very similar conversation because we took the Wolfpack to the woodshed.
Would be nice. It would be nice. That was a nice little alliteration there.
I know. I did a good job there. I was proud of that.
Proud of you.
Myself on the back.
Yes, and this is what Mark Campbell talked about all off season. I sat down with him in his office, 2 months ago at this point, and he was talking about how much he loved the depth on this team and how they were going to play with freedom. He's talked over and over again about wanting to unleash Haley and just let her play freely within the system, which we've seen in the first 2 weeks or first 2 games. And now it's about sustainability, health, and making it to the end of the season in good shape. So, yeah, super excited, and we'll see where they go from here. Like you said, they play Texas State on Wednesday. The men play Texas State on Tuesday. So it's a lot of Bobcats coming to town in the middle of the week before a step up in competition for both programs coming up next weekend. Melissa, let's hit it real quick. TCU women's soccer made it to the Big 12 tournament championship on Saturday evening. They end up falling to Kansas. Kansas was the 6th seed. They end up falling to Kansas 1-0. I know you watched most of this game in the press box while we were covering football. Kansas gets a penalty kick goal in the second half, and then TCU has a penalty kick waved off at one point with just a few minutes remaining in the half, and then they kind of have a late barrage, can't quite get a good shot on goal, and end up falling to the Jayhawks in the Big 12 championship. So now they await their fate. I believe the selection show is later on Monday.
Monday at 3 p.m.
So if you're listening to this early on Monday, tune in for that at 3. If you're listening to this on maybe Tuesday, just Google where they're going or check social media. But I still think there's a really they're in great shape. And I think that the road, because of what they've done to this point, will not be like we've seen in the last few seasons where they were having to fight some significant road battles early on in tournament play to make any headway.
They'll host on Friday. That's all but guaranteed at this point, and they'll probably have an in-state competitor. I think our friend Ray tweeted with what he thought. I was talking to some people before the game today about what they thought it might be.
Ray on the podcast.
I shouted out Ray on the podcast. We're 100% going to hear from him. Thank you, Ray. So yeah, but I think they'll host, but it looks like that loss, unfortunately, and in my opinion, very unfairly, probably knocks them off the 2 seed bubble, makes them a 3. So they'd have to go on the road the following week. So they will have a tough road, not the toughest that they've had, but this is also one of the more complete TCU soccer teams that we've seen, even on some of those that have gone on big runs. It's definitely the most potent offensively we've seen in the last several years. Kansas did a good job of really mucking up the game. One of the other media guys today said they don't play soccer. Kansas doesn't, and they're probably going to have to see somebody that doesn't play soccer in the first round too. But I think we were kind of talking about the same thing, is that you don't want to lose. And Eric Bell would never say that he's glad that they lost this game, like in no reality. But somewhere as a coach, you're probably thinking, man, we were due, and I'd rather lose before the NCAA tournament starts than in it, sure. Right? And so it's also just a refresh. It takes a little bit of the pressure off, because you're just kind of always waiting for the other shoe to drop sometimes as an athlete on a long winning streak. It lets them take a breath, reset, watch some film, learn from that style that Kansas played against them, and make adjustments. So yeah, obviously would have liked to have won. That probably meant that they would have hosted 2, potentially 3 games at home. That would have been the much easier path. But at the end of the day, they are going to get a home game on Friday. They will play against a team that they are absolutely capable of beating, and hopefully they put a couple goals on the board, get some of their confidence back before they have to probably go on the road in the second round. So soccer always shows up and shows out. The fans do a great job. I expect a packed house on Friday night, 7 p.m., no matter who the opponent is, and I'm really hoping that we see them put up 4 goals. I'm calling 4-0. I don't even care who the opponent is. This is just the way I'm feeling about TCU women's athletics. I'm building all of the confidence, all of the belief. I think they're going to come out and smoke their first round opponent, because they're going to be pissed off about the way that Kansas game went.
You're fired up tonight, and I love it. That's going to do it. That's going to do it for this episode of Frogs Insider. Thank you to the Flying T Club. Thank you to Dave Campbell's Texas Football. We will be back later this week with something. Probably to talk about basketball and soccer, because there's a football bye week, but we're still going to do another episode this week at some point.
We'll talk to someone cool for you guys. We'll get a good interview or something. We'll have something coming up.
Speaking of good interviews, if you missed it, I dropped an interview one-on-one with Kirk Saarloos, TCU's baseball coach, late last week. You can go find that in the feed or on the YouTube channel as well. Hear what Kirky had to say after the Purple and White World Series. Hear about his hole-in-one that he had. Hear about meeting Shaquille O'Neal. Small hands, I hear, from Shaq. But
do you call him Kirky to his face, or just?
I have once. I don't know how much he liked it, so we're gonna test. This is gonna be a test to see how deep into every show Kirk Saarloos gets. Yeah. But
next time I see him at a basketball game, because he's always in the front row, I'm gonna be like, Kirky.
Courtside.
Jamie said I can call you Kirky.
He's gonna make a face, and he's gonna come at me for that, like a spider monkey. Anyways, go Frogs. We will talk to you next time.
Go Frogs.